Shirley has just given some thought. She just unwrapped the wet towel around her head, and she's going to tell us what's the magic answer. Because public health, just to recap, public health is the sum total of interconnectedness in our lives, our habits, and our way of life. So, is it too difficult to unpick?
No, I think what we really need to do is, and you've written about a lot of this, Roy, is to create, we need to think about a health system being as healthy for as long as we can, and we need to create all of our policies and practices around that. So we need to sort of turn the Titanic a bit and start investing in early years in some of the areas where we know, people are dying young.
Sure Start was good, wasn't it?
Sure Start was excellent. I mean, we start these good programs, then we start the early years investment. I mean, the district nurses, the health visitors, numbers are all going in the wrong direction. Local government have lost $500 million in 5 years. Now, whatever you say, that is quite a lot of money. The NHS needs more money, but it got 2.8 billion in autumn. So we're not investing anything in prevention. And unless we really think about that, it isn't just the money, it's the money and a cultural mindset. So I think looking at what can we do in place, I have real hopes for what's happening in Manchester, because they are looking in an integrated way across the system. And it needs to be around community support, it needs to be cradle to grave, it needs to be, across the life course, and of course we need to, the integrated health and social care, we need to do something really significant.
Are you hopeful of that? I mean, it seems to me that Jeremy Hunt's going to change the title on the note paper, but to do anything, to think about it, we're all running away with saying, oh, this is a great idea, but if you think about it, we've got to change the deductible expenditure limit, which means legislation. It means that we've got to, if we've got the money, we're going to have to employ the people. It means we've got to 2P people across to where, not CCGs because they're all disappearing. Who hosts them? Do they go into hospitals? What happens? And now he's paused accountable care organisations because everybody's frightened of losing the judicial review. So, it's not that easy, is it?
It isn't that easy, but you need the political will. It's a massive problem. The Barker Commission in 2014 argued...
Just so people know, the Barker Commission was written by Kate Barker.
Kate Barker,
for the King's Fund, where we're broadcasting from tonight. But a great report. But it was going to be always going to be a shelf filler.
One budget, a single budget, looking together. So if it's problematic, so many things are a problem. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it because it's difficult. And actually, one of the things I think about that I learned in the States, and I think is really harder here, is that we are so good at analysing the problem. I mean, I could, in this building particularly, take millions of reports, things that have been written again and again, the same kind of things, but actually actioning it, we don't take enough risks. I mean, one thing I learned being in New York was that you really need to recognise that you might fail, and that's okay, because you'll learn something through that failure. But you will get it right eventually. And here, I don't know what it is. There's something about the fear of failure, or the fear of not being 100%, that just seems, to hold us back from the actions that we know are right. Because you take anything, stuff you've written, everybody's written, we know what needs to be done. So somebody needs to grasp that mantle.
Perhaps I'll just stop writing about it. Right, we have some questions, I know. Gentlemen, just tell us who you are and just make your comment.
So I'm Mike Robinson. I'm Director of Public Health at Westminster City Council.
He's sitting in Ermine.
I may be the only fellow of the Faculty of Public Health here. So first of all, you're absolutely right to be a harsh critic of what we've achieved so far. You're right, most public health indicators are moving in the wrong direction. We need people like you to actually come over to the dark side. So every time you write about public health, I am delighted that you are raising the profile of these very important issues. So we have a number of heroes over the century, the 150 years in public health who aren't public health specialists. So I think someone that we need to think very carefully about and support is Graham Allen, the Early Intervention Foundation, the idea that we can actually help people be better parents, that young people can grow up with greater self-esteem, and that they can make their own choices. It's not a question of nannying, it's a question of actually creating an environment where people can make healthy choices. So you're right, there's a long way to go, but no political party, no politician wants fat kids, no one wants people dying of strokes. It's a noble cause, Roy. Come on board and help us do it better.
This is the end of my career as a contrarian.
New career.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, it just seems to me a piece of business logic. You know, we're running a business here. We've got too many customers and not enough money. We've got to kind of go upstream and stop stuff happening. It just seems to me to be so logical. Has anybody else got a comment or something? Yes, ma'am. Just tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Annette, and in my spare time, I'm chair of a charity called Social Action for Health that operates in North East London, and they do some amazing work.
Jolly fine charities too. If you give £5, text. Yeah,
they're integrating with all of the communities there, doing health management programs, but the money is drying out from the local authorities, from the CCGs, and any money that there is, commissioners aren't making decisions on because they're tying themselves in knots about the SCPs and Tower Hamlets together. And I'm honestly not sure if the charity is going to survive this integration period. So if you were me, thinking back to your sort of fundraising days in America and everything you did there, do you have any advice on what to do?
That's very interesting. How do the local people feel about it? Do you have a lot of support in the community?
Yes.
Okay, so come and have coffee with me and we'll have a chat about it, because I think there are things you can do, particularly if you've got people behind you, and get some. But actually, this is something that
how many charities like you are there in the area as well?
So many that are completely against the line, really up against it.
Well, then a part of that. I mean, we Terry and I, the blonde, did some work with the bowel cancer charities, where there were. How many were there, Terry?
Double figures.
Double figures and they're all trying to do the same thing, coming from a slightly different angle, and we managed to get them all in one room. And that was my lifetime achievement. We got them in the same room, and we left them in the same room and let them get on with it. But actually, they've now...
Well, two of the biggest bowel cancer charities have now merged and are working.
wow.
I mean, I can't take the credit for it, but we created the environment. So if you can create the environment where people come together, have a common purpose, if not necessarily a shared purpose, but a common purpose in what you do, cut your back office costs, and then start crowdsourcing money.
That's one way. I mean, one thing that we were wanting to do, and we're trying to do at the moment, is to create some different models, because we do the Health and Wellbeing Awards, and so we see some amazing organisations in all sorts of areas across the UK who are doing great things in health and wellbeing, many of whom are exactly in your position. So what we wanted to do is create a social investment fund for the public's health, so that organisations who are showing impact and who lots of DPHs, Directors of Public Health and others, want to survive and are worried about not surviving, that we look and figure out new business models, social enterprise models and other ways, because I think there are ways of doing that, and we're still fighting for that. So we've done a feasibility study, and it looks like we'll be taking it to the next stage. So more later.
Yeah. Phil
Hawthorne, I run a leadership company as well as I'm a bit of a cook.
He's written a book called Men Can Cook.
Really?
Can Men Cook? It's very good, and I'm living proof they can't. Yes,
I used to be fat and unfit.
That could become marvellous. He's looking.
Do you have a question?
55. I do have a question. The question is, you've mentioned an awful lot of reports, Shirley.
Yeah.
Like 16 that I can.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gosh, we have done.
Is it about nudging, or is it about action? Because I haven't heard anything that's made things happen.
Okay, so, well, I wouldn't quite say that. Our Health on the High Street report, which I didn't mention, which is 2015, I think. So, no, 2015 was Health on the High Street. And 17 reports. But basically what that did was to have a look at the infrastructure. It said, actually what we were fed up with was at that time, everything was about individual responsibility. And of course, you know, we understand that's really important. But there was nothing about the infrastructure stuff. The fact is that if you're in a poorer community, you know, your high streets, we use that as a proxy really, to gain attention. And that report, we highlighted the 10 healthiest and unhealthiest high streets in the UK, and then in the London boroughs, we highlighted the healthiest high streets and unhealthiest. And guess what? The poorest communities had the unhealthiest high streets. Since that report came out, we did a lot of recommendations around local authorities having more control, around licensing, planning, around looking at their high streets, about being able to design in health and those kind of things. And a number of local authorities have taken that up. And payday lenders, who are our worst people on the high street, on our Richter scale of health, they were a -4, which is very bad. Payday lending, many of them are now off the high street, and the Financial Conduct Authority has, as you know, clamped down on them. And one of the reasons, it wasn't the only, but one was that it was highlighted, bookmakers and payday lenders were highlighted in that report, and it got commented upon in all areas. So sometimes it does do things. As an organisation, we do training, we do quals, we do other things.
Well, I don't know what it is.
Beyond
I mean,
that,
if you think about the planning powers that local authorities have, they're very limited in what they can grant a planning consent to. You know, if someone can get a betting licence to open a betting shop, it's very difficult for the councillors, and having been a councillor, it's very difficult to say no to a legitimate, legalised. So if Ladbrokes come and want to be next to Bet365, there are almost no powers, because you can't choose between commercial organisations.
Well, so that's one of the things that we've been trying to change, and we've been working on this. In fact, I am the bête noire of the
Bet365.
The British Bookmakers Association, because they didn't like being called out as unhealthy on the high street. We called out the clustering, and we've been a major component of the fixed odd betting terminal campaign, because we saw quite clearly from their balance sheets that, you know, 50% of their income is from the fixed odd betting terminals. So if those go down to the £2 limit, a lot more betting shops will be closing. It got, you know, let's hope. Again, this is a political decision that needs to be taken.
I mean, the other thing is that so much of the betting now is done on the phone.
Online.
On your phone.
So much issues online.
You know, in the middle of a football game, you could say, you know, will the next corner be Chelsea or Man U? And you think, well, I'll have a fiver on that. You can see how people slip into it, can't you?
A lot of students.
But the trumpet, you see, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with having the odd drink. And there's nothing wrong with the chocolate
we
muffin.
Would not be
but it's where do you get to the point where it is wrong?
So it's
and
the
how
dialogue.
you interfere in people's lives.
Yeah.
Thomas McEwen, 1969, he was right.
So,
Terry, what have you got?
Well, I just think there's the obviously the Alzheimer's and the dementia has caused a lot of comments on Twitter. No, in a positive way. But Andy Tyso, otherwise on Twitter @DementiaBoy, who Roy mentioned, has said, Shirley, what can you do to help with this fake dementia news that doesn't help anybody? And he's done I don't know if I can show the picture. He's done a montage of all the fake news headlines from the papers all around dementia care, giving false hope to people on a weekly basis. And he's just saying, what more can we do to?
What about you taking the press complaints people, waking them up, rattling their cage?
Well, it really is interesting. I'd love to see that if Andy would like to send it to me, because I'd share it with the press at Alzheimer's Research UK.
I'm just going to show it to you
at it.
On the screen now.
Yeah, you've got one in here, Andy. I can tell you. Well done.
Every single one.
And people just take the headline and don't read down to the bit where the researchers say, no, there's no evidence in this, because that's at paragraph 4. And so let me take that on board, and
Okay,
I'd love to see that and take
send
to
that.
Alzheimer's Research UK, because actually they're very good at press, and I do think that this is the false hope bit. Having a mother with dementia, I agree with Roy that it's really a family. It ends up being a family tragedy. It's just awful so just before Christmas I went to visit my mother, and for the first time she didn't recognise me. That's a horrible day when for the first time you could see that she really didn't know who I was. It's I'm only one person, but there are thousands and thousands of people who go through this.
Yeah.
Right, listen, unless anybody else has got something to say, you've got a fabulous boss, haven't you? I bet you didn't know about all that, yeah? And you've got a very good communications guy as well.
Yeah.
I'm
Who
hoping,
is, by the way,
Yeah.
Duncan is, look out tomorrow, because we have a new report coming out,
Yeah.
Right 18, and it's called Labelling the Point, and it's about, we have mocked up, and Ed's over there who wrote it, and we have been looking at what we think a good label would look like post-Brexit, because we will have some power on that, and the right kind of information. We've obviously talked to the public about it, and we think that could nudge and help behaviour, because we think that people have the right to good, easily accessible information.
Will there be a label
and then
on
it's
my
their choice.
label on my chocolate muffins? Is that
It'll
what I'm talking about?
never on your
But,
chocolate muffin. You're allowed a chocolate muffin as long as you don't have 12. I think there's something about moderation. So
Oh, really? I thought if you just binge, it didn't count. And your communications guy is very, I have to say,
who
very
is
good.
on his way to Salford
Well,
to
it's
be
a-
our BBC breakfast tomorrow
Well, it's a
morning,
pity he's not
talking
watching,
about our labelling.
because I was going to offer him a job. I mean, he'd
Oh.
like to come and work for
Well,
us.
I have a great team. I mean, actually, fantastic staff. So I'm really proud of them.
Listen, if you're watching at home on the sofa or whatever it is, for God's sake, get up and get active. Don't let Shirley see you sitting down. We send Carl our love.
Thank you.
We normally give our guests a little gift, which I love this. We give our guests a gift. It is, John's got it there. Bring it over, John. There's a good chap. It's a bottle of scotch.
Oh.
Now the thing
Yes.
is,
a bottle of Welsh.
yeah,
A bottle of Welsh.
now the thing is, regulars will know that this is Welsh whiskey, okay, and it is the finest whiskey in the world. I'm sorry if you're watching in
Right.
Scotland, but it's
Say
Welsh
it.
whiskey, and we always give it to our guests. Partly because it is quite expensive and is above the threshold to have to declare interest with. So if you check Jeremy Hunt's register of interest, you'll find he's got a bottle of our scotch. But more important tonight, we think that you probably want to take that home and give it to your poor wounded old man.
Well, and I will say that I do like malt whiskey. It was my father's favourite drink.
Well, you will like that because that's proper
Don't
whiskey.
drink it very often or very much, but I do really like it. So
That's
thank you so much.
The public health message tonight is have a drop of scotch. Right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Shirley Cramer.